Hmm.
Hey, Sam.
Hey, Claire.
How did it go? I knew I knew you'd, in the end, he would get upset with you, but
I'm,
it was quite fun listening to it. But there were a
I'm
lot of
eating.
terms that I didn't quite understand.
Well, I'll explain it to you. But I'm eating a lot of watermelon now to cool my off, to cool my head off because I got so heated. My brain got all hot and bothered. So now I'm
Well, you
cooling off.
looked very calm, so that was impressive.
Yeah,
You were quite restrained with him.
well, he's a good guy. He's just misguided.
I know.
I have to cool down my brain.
Yeah.
But I reckon the ultimate purpose of that conversation was for me to introduce him to my rabbi, Rabbi Nir Ben Arzi, I believe,
Uh-huh.
and to have him listen to my rabbi's lectures on messages, to
Uh-huh.
research what my rabbi has been saying, because he's a diaspora Jew living in Los Angeles. In these final moments, who knows how much longer? It shouldn't be that much longer. Hashem, the Creator, Haboreh, the holy name, blessed be He, is so merciful that He wants to the last minute to give all of them the opportunity to understand what He wills of them, what He demands of them, and their
Hmm.
stiff necked refusal, and their excuses, and their make believe arguments
Hmm.
do not carry any weight anymore. So,
Hmm.
for my belief in what had just happened, it was not a coincidence, and the entire purpose of you talking to me about him was for me to engage and interact with him and talk to him and have him and introduce my rabbi to him and introduce my rabbi's warnings and lectures for the past 20 plus years, warning the Jews of the exile and of the diaspora that Hashem will lose patience with them, and the day of wrath, the day of judgment, will be a time where they will be eating their guts out, blaming themselves for not heeding the warnings of many years that all of them have heard. Uh, Now, the attempt that Jacob over there is making is to find some middle ground with the Christians by not demanding of them to surrender their belief in Jesus in one way or another, and having a modification of Jesus, and even for the Noachides to have the option and ability to continue believing in Jesus in a modified way, either as a prophet, as an Islam, or as some figure, a messianic figure that's interconnected with the Jewish people. The real Jesus that Robert Eisenman has concluded was probably some a prince that was being groomed from the Davidic line by the Essene movement, which was a violent rebel movement, not an ascetic, peaceful, hermit-like movement, but rather violent rebels that were violently opposed to the Romans, whose identity was a modified. I have to use this word modification a lot by the Greco-Romans and by the Hellenistic Jews that were in league with the Greco-Romans that concocted, engineered, mechanically created the Gospels as a response to the Hebrew Scripture, as a sort of like a final say on the prophets and on the Hebrew Bible, with Jesus being the end all be all answer. And who's hiding behind the Jesus? And nobody else but the Caesar, Titus Flavius, the fascist state. And what I mentioned to him was that Jay Dyer was changing his tune recently in his last video. He was mentioning the state as being an antichrist, having tyrannical leaders as antichrists, like the pharaohs and the Caesars,
Hmm.
and all tyrannical autocratic leaders having an element of antichrist in them because they are a fascist state, a megalomaniacs or demagogues that put themselves on the level of gods, or as again intercessors or intermediaries between the populace, the rabble, and God. That's what the Pope is. That's what the kings of Europe were. They're intermediaries, they're intercessors. They have the divine right of kings. They are should be seen as divine in some form or another. Yeah, it's just a continuation of the same scam of thousands of years, going back to the pharaohs and even Nimrod. And Jay Dyer mentioned Nimrod, and he mentioned all the aspects of the Tower of Babel, not trying to reach the heights of God, but the building of the Tower of Babel was a form of disobedience, or a form of rebellion, or a form of a physical display of we are confronting you, we are challenging you, we're brazen and brave enough to say that we can, be as high as you, or we can even challenge. They understood that there was a creator. They were openly trying to challenge him. And and it's not that they didn't believe that. It's not that they were atheists. They were wicked. All right. So the Satanists that we have today, and the fascism we find in government today, is not no different. I mean, some of them are outright atheists, and they say there is no God, but we will be gods, like Noah Yuval Harari.
Mhm.
Yuval Noah Harari, this character, the gay, and it's similar to Nimrod. It's similar to all of the tyrannical rulers that the Jewish people have had to face down throughout all of history. The pharaohs, the Caesars, the whatever, the emperors of the Greeks, whatever, the kings of the Greeks that we had to deal with, even the
Mhm.
Persians, but and later on, all of them throughout all of history. A God has made sure to keep us alive and sustain our existence, whether we have infighting amongst us and whether we don't agree with one another, eye to eye on everything. Whether we have even enemies from within, the fifth columnists, the Erev Rav, and I wouldn't say Jacob is one of those. He wants to find a middle ground with the Christians to try to help them sort of wean them off of Jesus, or it's like drug rehabilitation. He's like a Jewish drug rehab counselor for Christians, a, trying to wean them off of Jesus slowly by giving them some sort of replacement Jesus or a modified Jesus.
Methadone,
Yeah,
methadone,
yeah,
Jesus.
a methadone Jesus. I have to take a bite out of my watermelon. Just give me a second. Mm. It's really sad. I think the brutal truth should be the best sort of remedy for the drug rehab.
Mhm.
Some of the celebrities prefer the slow methadone, or the therapy, and the give them shots of opium, slowly to wean them off of the heroin. I prefer the amputation.
Cold turkey. I'm saying go cold turkey now.
Go cold turkey, but full amputation, amputating the Jesus from your ass. Amputate the Jesus from your ass completely, and that's the best way to go. That's the most honest approach. I mean, if you want to go and battle the New World Order, Satanist, globalists, demoniacs, you have to make peace with one of their inventions and amputate him, sever him from your mind and sever him from your body, because that's how they continue to maintain control of your mind and of your behavior. He's an ancient instrument of their invention.
Mhm.
And no matter what Jacob is trying to do, by actually finding the holiness, the sparks of holiness in that story, or the original history, the true history of the rebel Jews, or the true inspiration for the Jesus story, having Jesus turned on his head, and turned into a pacifist movement, or a rebel movement that is more sympathetic to the Romans than they are to the rebel Jews. And that is obvious. It's blatant. I mean, 2,000 years of that stuff, and people had a hard time figuring all of that out. It's because of ego, because it paints the Gentiles as the righteous ones and the Jews as the wicked ones. Obviously, Gentiles, gravitate towards that position. It It appeals to them more, obviously, if they're Gentiles. Oh, it's better off that we should be seen as the righteous, and those Jews that lost, obviously they're the wicked ones.
Hmm.
They rebelled and they lost, and just by virtue of their losing, that means that God hates them and they are the wicked. You know,
But it ain't over until the fat lady sings, or whatever it is. Because
pretty much.
yeah,
But that's
because
my
just because you're riding
go
flying
ahead. Say
high,
it. Go ahead. I'll
you
even
know,
want to
if
know.
you're flying high at the moment, it doesn't mean that you always will be, I guess. And I guess for God, I mean, 2,000 years is like 2 minutes for him.
Yeah, but for us, it's 2,000 years.
Mm.
2,000 years of them basking in the sun of lies and bloated propaganda and horse shit and modified idolatry and compromises with idolatry, and we had to swallow that crap for 2,000 years. And here he is, being a good Jew and being very kind and coming to their, coming to find a middle ground with them, coming to their rescue as far as throwing them a bone because they're going through spiritual crises of their own, realizing a lot of the information that's being put out now is very convincing from all of the scholars and researchers and academics and historians about the true nature of the Gospels Jesus and the true motivations of his invention and the hand of the Romans, the hands of the Hellenistic Jews, the royals, aristocrats in league at the time with the Romans, serving the Romans' interests, selling their own people out, and turning against the Jewish rebellion. You know,
Mhm.
uh, because they had already become quasi pagans. Because those Jews were semi quasi pagans, obviously Christianity took that same appearance because the writings came out of those people's minds. So it would from the get go be sort of like an amalgamation and a compromise and a Frankenstein, a smorgasbord mixture of because that's who they were. They inserted themselves into the literature they wrote, you know.
Mhm.
And so it's the harsh reality of that Eisenman is probably correct, and I take Jacob Berman's side.
Okay,
On
maybe you should explain that. I don't know this thing you're just talking about, the Eisenman thing.
Robert Eisenman
Well, I
was
don't know what this refers to and why it's important.
he wrote the book James, the brother of Jesus. It was the inspiration. It was one of the inspirations for Joseph Atwell's book Caesar's Messiah, and uh,
Uh-huh.
and Robert Eisenman was also influenced by Bruno. A what's his name? Bruno Bauer from the 19th century, a contemporary of Nietzsche and Marx, who had exposed the Roman provenance of the Gospels a century before, more over a century before the skeptics and the mythicists and the half mixture of mythicists historicists that we have today, the ones that lay a lot of doubt at the feet of the historicity of the Gospels and of the Gospels Jesus, of his being a historical person, and also of
Mhm.
Paul. So uncovering all this mystery. It's like a mystery novel. It's like Shakespeare, not Shakespeare, like Sherlock Holmes. It's like Sherlock Holmes,
Mhm.
and all the murder mysteries. The Orient Express, that kind of stuff. Who done it? You know.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
Robert Eisenman proposed that there were figures that Pliny the Elder and the Roman historians and propagandists of that time that were engaged with the rebel movement that had infiltrated the rebel movement. And if you recall, Joseph Atwell made it very clear that he believes that Pliny the Elder was one of the conspirators, was one of the culprits in formulating and creating um, the I'd say the foundations or the building blocks of Christianity in the first century for the malicious intentions that the Romans had in modifying the Hebrew scriptures, as they modified Plato via Aristotle as an earlier model, a precedent for doing what they did to the Hebrew scriptures. But they had to do it by way of studying the Jews, studying the rebels. That's what Pliny did. That's what all
The,
these
the rebels being the Jews who rebelled against the
against the Romans.
Romans.
Yeah, and they painted the Essenes. Then now you go to Qumran, and most of the tourists.
May I stop you about the Essenes? What's the significance of the Essenes?
In Christianity, they believe that's one of the earliest Christian movements, together with the Ebionites. All right, they want to paint them as pacifists that believed in the kingdom of heaven and didn't believe in the fighting the Romans. That they were pacifists. They believed that the Messiah would save them and that they would not have to fight. That's the story the Romans told via Josephus, Flavius Josephus,
Hmm.
who reshaped and modified the identity of these people that were vicious, violent, xenophobic, fanatical rebels that wanted to kick the Romans out of Jerusalem and out of Judea. And you had Pliny the Elder, a philosopher, a historian, a propagandist, and a very cunning person. Actually, it was made known to me by James Valiant, the author of the book Creating Christianity, that he has a corroboration for this in the Roman history that Pliny the Elder had actually infiltrated the Essene movement and started studying them, started learning about them. And it was about doing military reconnaissance and getting to know your opponents and how they were thinking and what they were planning and what they were and looking forward to. So the authors of the Gospels were historical revisionists of their day, and so
Hmm.
because it has these lies have been a, propagated around the world, and it became part of state propaganda and state doctrine, and it was viciously, violently enforced. Have people being burned at the stake, like you mentioned, for denouncing the Trinity.
Hmm.
Imagine what if you had they did that to Christopher Marlowe, a crypto Jew in the Shakespearean, what do you call it, Elizabethan England, when he
Hmm.
published his book. Not published it; it was about to publish, and they offed him, they got rid of him. And he also had a book exposing the Roman provenance of Christianity. Anyone that dared question it, was put down and viciously persecuted or put to death. They had a
Hmm.
lot to protect. All right, it was their racket. It was their mind control racket. It was the lazy man's easy approach to dominating the minds of their subjects without having to have standing armies to force the will of the kings and queens, the monarchs, on their subjects, on their people. It was a vector. It was a tool. It was an instrument of mind control. And all of this can be a means of examining how they use similar tools today to do the same thing. All right. If it's not by force, it's by means of a mind control, conditioning, and also at this point, straight up chemical poisoning, chemical dumbing down, and media in a combination with the media. These are not theories; these are proven facts at this point. Governments have vicious and malicious intentions when it comes to keeping their people under control. And we know the Latin roots of the word government means govern your mind, mind control. All right,
Hmm.
government. All right, we know this. This is which it should be constantly repeated that you're the historical genius here. Who said this? It was a Benjamin Franklin or Thomas Jefferson, or government
Is
is go ahead.
mind control? I haven't heard of it before, so I don't know anything about that.
Wait, or I think it was government is a fearful servant and a dangerous master. One second, I'll find the minute I put in the keywords, it'll pop up in Google. The beauty of the internet.
I mean,
Uh,
something familiar that sounds a bit like that would be public opinion is a dangerous but gullible monster. But that was what
yeah,
Bismarck said.
something in that line. In that line,
Hmm.
a fearful master. I believe it was Benjamin Franklin who said this.
But I
Uh,
suppose it's as old as the hills because
Here it is. I found it. It's old as the hills, but it's the founding fathers. But this is worth mentioning because they were geniuses when they said this. It
mm,
was a government is like fire, a dangerous servant and a fearful master. A government like fire is a troublesome servant and a terrible master. A government who said this? George Washington, John Tillotson, Jonathan Swift, James Fenimore Cooper, Frederick Utley Laycock, Robert Heinlein. Here, quote investigator. Washington died in 1799, but I have no citations in the 1700s or 1800s of him saying this. The who said who? It's asking who quoted, who made this comment. Who are we quoting here? And several researchers have attempted to trace this saying, and to no substantive evidence supporting the ascription to George Washington has yet to be located. The earliest linkage to Washington is that in the Christian Science Journal in 1902, which was more than 100 years after his death. Boldface has been added to expert. They're originally crediting George Washington with saying this, but it's not certain that he was the one who said it. But the quote again is government is like fire, a dangerous servant and a fearful master. But at the same time, you could say that government, in its the essence of the word government, it involves psychology and mind control and psychological operations. You
yeah,
know,
and this is the role of religion because we act on our beliefs, and all religions are belief systems, and we're,
that's part.
told that, well, this is a story, this is what we're expected to believe if we're going to be considered, you know, paid up members of society and decent, clever people, and that kind of thing.
They work
And
hand in hand. Yeah, they work hand in hand.
yeah,
Sometimes they can be used if you have a benevolent leader that actually loves his people, that actually wants to serve the interests of his people, and not persecute them and not cause them to suffer. And he's a just, what do you call that in Plato? In his
um, a, a philosopher king.
a philosopher king. There you go. If you got one of those, then it could work in everyone's favor and everyone's benefit. But because of war and because of infighting and because human nature, you rarely find a philosopher king that's benevolent, that's really looking out for the interests of his people instead of trying to dominate his people.
Well,
And
the thing is it well script. Okay, reveal scripture was a giant leap forward for mankind. When the Torah was handed over to Moses. I mean, whether people believe it or not, it's scripture that cements the law because you can't have law if you don't have anything written down.
hmm
And the laws of God in the Torah, and all those, you know but there hasn't been that many imitations, you know because the whole point of belief systems, which are also moral systems, which are also legal systems, is that if we're good people, we believe the story and we do this thing and we never do the other thing, and this is who we are as a people,
Uh-huh.
and and that gives us our identity, and Jews are
hmm
the exemplars of this system of belief.
Just to get things straight and clear between us, Claire, you don't have any doppelgangers that sound exactly like you. Maybe in the upper in apartments next to you or above you, maybe.
I don't know how he thinks it works. I just don't think, why would I don't think I sound differently when people can see me and when they can't.
I don't know. He
Well,
says you have a team. You have a team of people working under you.
Well, he flatters me. I suppose that's why I keep saying, listen to what Jacob says about me. He thinks I'm this sort of cunning, brilliant supervillain, you know, like a
Well, you know
character.
what? One thing I think he's right about is that we shouldn't alienate converts to Judaism if they're genuine. So,
Oh,
I
I,
mean,
I, I never do that. I haven't. That's not my thing.
I know, but it's like even like missionaries like Shannon that lives in Jerusalem, Shannon Newton. I mean, at first, obviously, a lot of Jews would look upon her with suspicion and treat her with a bit of distrust. But I've listened to her and I've seen her speaking on stage with Rabbi Singer, and I've heard her denouncing Christianity, and I've heard her spill her guts out and uh, expose everything and spill her heart completely as far as how she was shattered when she discovered the full truth. And she was acting as a missionary to convert Jews to Christianity, and she was being genuine about it. Her and her parents, her father was a minister, and he also turned from Christianity once he did. They were genuine people that wanted to know the full truth. They didn't have access to the material, the real. As she calls it. I just posted a video to my Facebook. The opponent's playbook. Now, I talked to her and I conversed with her via the chat room during Tovia's live shows, and I told her, listen, you should consider Caesar's Messiah, and you should consider the Roman provenance theory. You should look more into it. I mean, it's more challenging than discovering all the falsehoods you find in the New Testament and the Gospels, which are clear on their face once Tobias Singer points them out. The differences in the Hebrew, the Greek, and the Latin, and all the inconsistencies, the deliberate mistranslations, the things that are obvious proofs as to the false and criminal nature of the Gospels as being not just scams, but perversions designed to create a modification of Judaism and blend it with Greco-Roman idolatry. And I told Jacob, I agree with him. God had His purpose for moderating pagan idolatry via Christianity, and I think the hammer.
It's to test
Yeah,
Jews, right? The whole thing. I mean,
not just to
what
test the Jews, but also for
and the
all the nations.
Muslims?
Yes, yes, to not have these this kind of trickery and half measures and gymnastic maneuvers in trying to legitimize a pagan idol, where the Hebrew scriptures is very prodigiously and very clearly denounce any form of idol worship or a partner or an equal to the Creator next to Him, and in various forms. That's a pure pagan idolatry of the
Yes, yes,
ancient world.
and
So,
then and
but
Jews
I
have,
agree
have
with
these
Jacob.
two concepts of Zara and she too.
Yes. Well,
Hello.
he agrees. He agrees with everything, but he still wants to create a bridge or an easier path, a more a compromise, a more accommodating, an accommodation, and by way
Well,
of
but it's impossible. You can be okay. I've been nice to them too. I always start out nice, Sam, and then when you realise, they're not going to pick up any hints, and actually, if you shout at them, they're still not going to do it either because they're invested in not admitting that they're wrong. So
yes,
so that,
yes.
that you have nothing left other than to say, look. You are guilty of idolatry. You can't prove that you're not. What is Christianity but idolatry? And then you don't have these complicated explanations that will make the average person just, well, shut his eyes and, after he has fallen asleep and his mouth drops open, he's not going to go, oh, the Hebrew says this, and, the Christians don't learn Hebrew, and, they mistranslated that and they
And in the
twisted this.
meantime, they do tremendous damage to ignorant Jews or half-wit Jews or
Exactly.
uneducated Jews.
Yes, and,
Yeah.
and the only thing you can say to Jews to protect them is to say, look, anybody who tells you that Jesus is alive, is an idolater, because to to even talk about Jesus as being alive is to think of him as immortal. To think of him as immortal is to think of him as divine. And if you think he's divine, you are an idolater. Wham, bam.
Yes, yeah,
There's no escaping it. But if you pussyfoot around, but worrying about their hurt feelings, and I'm afraid Shannon, she has a conflict of interest because she still has her family and
right.
associates who are Christian, and she's not going to give it to them with both barrels.
I know, I know.
She's
Well,
not gonna,
I
and,
know,
and
I
that,
know,
that's what I'm
I
saying.
know.
I'm not saying she's a bad person, and maybe as a woman she can't do it. And I think
Maybe, maybe
orthodoxy is
I
a crazy
understand
way
her.
to try.
I understand her dilemma. I understand a lot of Christians that leave Christianity for either Noahidism or Christianity. They leave Christianity for Judaism. They are left very lonely and isolated and separated and segregated. They either do it themselves, or their family ends up ostracizing them and distancing themselves from them. Because it is a matter of 2,000-year-old pride. It is a matter of a grudge match. It is a matter of ego. It is really about ego, because Jesus in the New Testament raises the ego of the Gentiles and has the Gentiles feeling superior and more knowledgeable and more like in the in crowd, versus the Jews that are the outsiders, the losers,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
ones the ones that
I
have
mean,
missed out.
I've spoken to so many of them. It's like, oh, look at the Jews. They look like this, and we're so cool, and we're so rich, and we're so mainstream, and everybody loves our Hollywood, and they're so fringe and
Yeah, for
weird.
sure.
And
Yeah, I mean
yeah,
that gave them. I mean, they were basking in the sun of this quasi monotheistic, not, but it's not monotheistic. It's a compromise with monotheism. This pagan Greco-Roman mishmash religion that takes advantage of Judaism and tries to override Judaism, usurp it, and to claim superiority to it, and to poke fun at the Jews, looking at them from above, and looking down upon them as having lost their country and having lost the fight, as far as which who is God for the Gentiles, and they don't realize that they have been duped by their oligarchs, their overlords for centuries. It was Jeff, I forget his name, in Kansas, Jeffrey Doherty. He used to be an Air Force chaplain, and he became very bitter and anti-Christian, or very, and became supremely anti-Semitic towards America's Jews, because he felt that they were taking advantage of the Christians, American Christians, having become very pro-Jewish or very pro-Israel through the evangelicals, obviously with their hidden agendas and intentions. They
of
still,
converting you. Hmm.
converting you. They still modified Christianity to make it pro-Jewish and pro-Israel. And a lot of American Jews and Canadian Jews will want to, take advantage of that, or capitalize on that while they can. And I
Yeah,
see
because I
they,
mean, they can make aliyah and be paid by Christian Zionists, right?
yeah, well, yeah, or they can have an easier go at it amongst Christian Zionists. If they live in red states amongst Christian Zionists, they get treated far better. They're more
Hmm.
tolerated. They receive a lot of love from the Christians. They even intermarry with the Christians. I met these kinds of Israelis here that fell in love with a bunch of evangelical Zionist Christians in of all places. Oh my! And so be it. Or in Florida, but now, because you have religious Jews like Tovia Singer and others that are genuine and don't pull their punches, that you have a flourishing Noahide movements in America. Because to be honest, I don't I need to get this across to Jacob. I don't hate American Christians just because, and I don't hate them at all. But
Hmm.
I do resent missionaries. I do resent missionaries a lot, because they do a lot of damage. So that's why I would, have them get them weaned off of Jesus completely, the hard way, like cold turkey, like you
Yeah,
said. And
it's got to be explained to them that Christianity is idolatry, and that's why it is
not
necessary
yeah, I
to
agree with you, but not only in that simple explanation. Tovia has his approach by showing them proofs of all
I
the
know, but
meddling.
it's too complicated,
That's
honestly.
most people don't want to invest their time and their efforts in
No,
Jews are
it's
only.
too complicated. I mean,
I know,
I still barely get it myself, and
those are
I'm trying
intellect
to understand.
those are Bible beating Christians that are extremely passionate about learning all of the passages
Yeah,
in the
but
New
you
Testament.
know what Toby says? He says, "Oh, I talk to these Christians, and these Christians don't even know what I'm talking about."
I
So
have
he's
no,
saying
no,
that they don't even have the scriptural knowledge that he
yeah,
has.
I know, but it's the missionary types that are the ones invested in trying to convince the Jews of Jesus being the Messiah, that are more academic, that are more inquisitive, that are more curious, that actually investigate, that actually do the research, like Shannon did. And she has others on her show. I posted a video of hers from a week back, where she's talking to a fellow former missionary that underwent similar experiences, and they discuss what the whole process of their having a change of heart and having a different outlook and changing their perspective. We're living in the information age. Language is no longer a barrier. Translating languages is no longer a barrier. And with the help of people like Rabbi Singer, it's no longer a barrier. He has his approach. I find the approach of exposing the true nature of Christianity from the first century on the level of political intrigue, on the level of imperial mind control intrigue, far more attractive. It's that approach is far more juicy. It's juicier for me. It's juicy. It's tasty. It's lovely because why? Because I'm a fan of Alex Jones, and I've listened to Alex Jones for so long. I've contributed to his his show in one form or another. I've given him certain things that I would like to get focused on, or certain developments. And I remember it was when he was still on YouTube. I used to comment and leave links, and I was a major wave of influence and persuasion. I made a huge stink as a passionate American that grew up American, living in Israel. Having my multifaceted identity.
Mm-hmm.
I took my rage. I took my passion out on YouTube when he was on YouTube, and I think in my own way, I kind of fanaticized the populist movement that grew up around Alex Jones. I contributed to it. I wouldn't say I'm like number one, Mr. the biggest dog, but I played my part, and I righteous rage and righteous anger. With my humor, with my sense of humor, with my the bite and the sarcasm and all that. I was fully behind Trump, and I was in that wave of like fucking up the Democrats, bullshit lies, and on what basis? On the basis of well, this has been done for centuries, and these are the old. This is their racket. This is the old ways and means of keeping people under control, mind fucking them, propagandizing them, lying to them, and we find the true origins. But it came into head-to-head conflict with the people I was trying to help, because the majority of them were Christians, and diehard
Mm-hmm.
Christians, and evangelical, and Baptists, and I understood the paradox and the contradiction in that. I tried my best to get them, but it's hard. It is exactly as you described it. It's their pride, it's their ego, it's a grudge match, and when the instruments of truth and revelation are focused and turned on to Christianity and the Gospels, they take offense, because the grudge match was supposed to be won by them, and they were supposed to bask
But
in the
they only
sun.
ever won it using violence anyway. So they never won, way back then, they just torture you
Yeah,
or
but I just
burn your
I mean,
Talmud
it's
if
hard.
they
It's a hard.
if
It's
they
it's just a
lost.
bitter. it really is just a bitter pill to swallow. And that's why Jacob has said it. A lot of Noachites are bitter anti-Christians. And they used to be very fanatical Christians. They used to be
Yes, they've
amongst
been
the most
lied to for generations, for
and
1700
they
years or
were
so.
used, yes, and they were used to be activists for Christianity. If they were former missionaries, and if they were former teachers, and if they were former proponents, or a lot of pastors even, and preachers, they feel cheated. They do feel cheated. So it's right of them to feel betrayed and lied to, and they turn against what they were so committed to, what they were so devoted to. But they don't surrender their faith in the Creator because they know better. They're not stupid. They're not young, stupid teenage atheists. Rebellious, youths that just want to have their fun and be rebellious while they're young. A lot of them have been around. They're parents of children, and they know better. They know that there's a God. They won't take the route of a bitter a former Christian that has fallen away from the faith and from the church, and now he's so confused, or she's so confused, and sort of like disillusioned, that they question the existence of God. Okay, you can have that period, that phase try it for like about a week or two, or maybe more, a very short period of time. If you're a smart person, you'll overcome that almost right away. If you're falling away from Christianity, and you have accepted the full truth about what the Gospels are, what Jesus is, and again, it's a what. It's not a who, and it's not it deserves zero respect. I mean, the fact that Jacob is trying to lend it some respectability in order to wean the Christians off of it, an easier slide away from it in a comfortable way, in an accommodating way. Well, God willed Christianity, and by way of these lies and deceptions over 2,000 years, he slowly conditioned the idol worshippers, the pagans of the world, to know the God of Israel, but to still have a compromise with idolatry. You see Catholics in Mexico, or you see Catholics in Latin America or South America,
Mm-hmm.
with the Day of the Dead,
Mm-hmm.
drinking the blood straight out of a bull, a living bull, in a container, or like a bowl. They puncture a wound into a living animal, a bull. All the
And
blood start draining, and they drink it. You know, and so that's compromising with a form of their ancient idolatry that they're still practicing, and that Catholicism accommodates that. It's accommodating. It allows for that. And so many other places in Africa, they have some really sick practices, and they call themselves Catholics and Christians. It accommodates a barbaric, pagan, idolatrous rituals, and then they'll come and tell us, well, what about metzitza bapeh? Metzitza bapeh, when you circumcise your young boys at the eighth day after they're born. Well,
mm-hmm.
isn't that a pagan practice? And they'll always revert back to circumcision, and they always want to do away with the practice and the ritual of circumcision. This has been throughout
Mm-hmm.
history. Their biggest gripe, because they want the Jews to give up, surrender on their faith, and compromise and become Gentiles. They don't want circumcision.
Mm-hmm.
And circumcision is the number one form of a conviction of being a part of the Jewish people, of the covenant between the Jews and God. That's they will always focus in on that as being, oh, that's a primitive ritual, and they do metzitza bapeh, as if they're sucking the dick of an 8-year-old child is sexual or erotic in any way, shape, or form. It's not. It's like it's just what's part of ancient customs. It's for me, it's distasteful as well. I'd rather they do something else. But that's the custom. That's the ritual. It has to be done that way. And if you ask me, they can find some medical, clinical method of cleaning the area at once it's been circumcised, without
Mhm.
having the moel, the person committing the circumcision, having to do that with his mouth, having to suck the blood out with his mouth.
Mhm.
It's a bit, it is kind of backwards and a bit distasteful. That kind of practice, that kind of custom. Uh,
Mhm.
but I have no gripes with it because it's an ancient 1,000 years old custom. If some kind of provision can be found for
Mhm.
a medical method of a suction and cleaning without a person's mouth on it, it has no sexual overtones or eroticism about it, or sexual depth, or certain relevance, or relation. But in the
Mhm.
minds of the Gentiles, just doing that, immediately they jump to this, oh, it's a blowjob, oh, it's sexual, and that's
Mhm.
they're sick. It has there's no intention like that, or purpose. It's in front of tens of people around him,
It's the
men and
quickest way
women.
to sort of
Yeah,
do the job, rather than
yeah,
fiddle around with cloth and
yeah.
cotton wool or
But if
whatever.
they're now with technology, they can come to some sort of agreement. They can have some Talmudic get together and discuss the matter. If it can be altered and revised with new technology, that it doesn't have to be physical contact with another person. It's for a lot of people, both religious and non-religious. It's distasteful, but they accept it because it's been law. It's been written into law that that's the method, that's the ritual. I personally would rather it be some medical device and not the mall's mouth.
Mhm.
It's not because I can be a perverted sick fuck in my own, having been whatever, growing
Mhm.
growing up with who I grew up with and being who I am. I can have a perverted sick mind and think that way as well. I don't think that way. I don't go that route, but it's distasteful. If they can find a
Mhm.
medical tool or a medical instrument to do the job without the moral having to do that with his mouth, great. But if not, so be it. Fine. As long as it's
I
clean.
wonder, I mean, an analogy comes to mind about, well, methods of execution, and people think, oh, beheading, oh, the axeman, swordsman, and or,
Yeah.
or guillotine. And I don't know. Maybe some people actually prefer the human touch to
Right.
being guillotined. If beheading were I don't know, would you
The,
prefer a swordsman, an axeman, or the guillotine?
I'd prefer the guillotine.
Ah.
I think the guillotine is less painful. I think it's more instant than the axe. The axe can miss, or the axe can only maybe if he's not strong enough, it'll only cut through halfway or not do the job fully, and then you're suffering. The technology of the guillotine is more humane.
Yeah, I suppose it does seem a bit cold-blooded, but then, who am I to,
No, the weight
talk
of
in
the.
terms of.
I think
Mm.
that, yeah, the guillotine, with the French invented a more humane way of execution. Yeah,
Uh, I think okay, okay, that's cleared up anyway. But yeah, I mean,
it's it's kind of morbid to talk about that kind of stuff. But
I
yeah,
know.
as far as the aversions the Gentiles have to circumcision and the practice and the rituals and the whole process, I can understand it. I can relate. I'm not gonna recommend over going or canceling circumcision. But if a new instrument or a tool that is kosher and considered acceptable, and there's a consensus agreement that the moil can over, pass on the, sucking the blood with the mouth and use an instrument instead, I'd be all for it. If it was made
Mhm,
kosher and acceptable and there was a consensus about it, no problem. But
mhm,
for
mhm.
now, they haven't. I don't think they're modifying that. But it just, as a lot of things have been modified throughout the years in Judaism. You know, there can be room for modification. But in the time of messianic revelation, in the time of Mashiach, a lot of things will change. I mean, some stuff that is off the wall, if I mention it, when it happens and it arrives, it'll be all good. There'll be no confusion about anything anymore. Um, as far as Jacob also going on about the Jews having to continue to interact directly with non-Jews and give them guidance or give them help, have them sort of like wean them off of Christianity in a way that's accommodating and comfortable, and whereby the Jews begin to bend, and they bend a little here and bend a little there. Like what he said, the Sanhedrin makes allowances for Noachites to believe in the man in one way or another. It's just retarded. Diaspora Jew, exile Jew, ass kissing, and compromising in order to maintain their status quo, in order to remain their good standing with the Gentiles. And it's sad. That's why at the end of the discussion, I told them, look, my rabbi's message is that your time is up. You shouldn't be interacting with them directly anymore. You shouldn't be involved in their affairs, in their politics, in their economics. God demands of you that you should ingather and return to Israel. If you do not accept this of your own free will, by way of a intellectual, persuasion, and by way of God persuading you through your mind, then it's going to be by way of force, by way of anti-Semitism, by way of the Gentiles turning on you in the moment of truth. And when they lose patience with you completely, or they become completely indifferent towards you. So they're not looking to you for answers or your opinion or your take on things or your input on things. They just don't care. They'll become completely indifferent and neutral towards you. And then there will be the violent ones that have been fanaticized against you, pursuing you violently. Again, and at the time when God loses his patience with you. And what my rabbi said now is that the Creator is upset at not only at the world, at the whole entire world, but he's upset at the Jews. He's upset at the Jews of the diaspora for being stiff-necked and not being convinced by way of his gentle persuasion, and sometimes not so gentle persuasion, by way of anti-Semitism, by way of violence. That's God's persuasion. And he's upset at the Jews of Israel. He's upset at the Jews of Israel for trying to investigate who the Messiah is and what the whole thing is. What is the Messiah, without asking God for the Messiah. Instead, they're too preoccupied with the ins and outs, like what is the Messiah? Who is the Messiah? What is this messianic process all about? Questioning things. Why hasn't it arrived yet? It was promised to arrive already. There's too much squabbling. There's too much sort of like nitpicking. There's too much complaining. There's not enough cohesion. There's not enough unity in a united voice of enough Jews saying, well, it doesn't matter. We have full faith in God. We just want Mashiach now. We are praying. We want Hashem, please reveal the Mashiach. Please save us. Please redeem us. Instead of being humble, instead of being focused, they are, being typical assholes and being whiners, whining and complaining. Well, we were promised this a long time ago. And wasn't it Rabbi Kanievsky about 7 years ago said the Messiah was supposed to arrive already? And wasn't it Rabbi Kaduri about 17, 18 years ago said Mashiach is alive in Israel and the Messianic process is upon us? And so, instead of having faith and realizing that we are knee deep in this process, we are up to our necks in this process. Some of them are being still, slaves to their routines, slaves to their habits. They're not being submissive. They're not breaking their, skepticism. And instead of, changing their tune and changing their attitudes, you can live your routines, make your earnings, work your jobs. If things it will be routine until they are no longer routine, until everything flips on its head. But at least stop being skeptical. How many more clues do you need? How many more proofs do you need? The Jews especially. That's why he said Hashem is angry at a large majority of the Jews living in Israel, not everyone. He's angry at the ones that are not submitting to having full faith that we are in the messianic process and we are upon messianic revelation. Why would God be upset? Why would Hashem be upset?
Mhm.
Because He gave them all the time in the world. He gave them all the signs, all the clues. He did everything they demanded that should be done, as far as nature lashing out, as far as wars amongst nations, wars within nations, the economy falling on its head, the economy in shambles, world global economy, and having all of this, floating above our heads. The global financial collapse that's been talked about ceaselessly, the all the now all the the revelations about who all the forces that are pulling the strings as far as the maniacal globalists or the maniacal cabals that are plan to take down everything in order to have a reset. All of this is all the proof and evidence and signals that the any Jew would need. And I'm sure Jacob Faturechi over there internalizes that and fully agrees with that, and he can accept that and he can agree with that. He said, "Well, this is not a new concept that we're upon messianic revelation now. This is nothing that's been talked about for the longest time." And it's not that I was meaning to be sort of like, "Oh, it's a revelation to you; it's something new." I just mentioned to him that what entails messianic revelation is the full ingathering of the exiles. And he is in a position now where he can either go one way or another. He can continue resisting and making up excuses that the job of the Jewish people is not done in the exile, when explicitly my rabbi said many years and many times over the years, the job of the Jewish people in the exile is over. They are there for nothing. Atem sham bechinam. You are there doing nothing, and you are there with no purpose. And they don't like hearing that. They want to believe they still have a purpose in the exile. When we are upon messianic revelation, and God, the Creator, and the Messiah is struggling with the Jews of the exile to have them return, to have them ingather, and they don't want to ingather of their own free will, it will result in their ingathering against their will. And they don't see this coming. They want to continue arguing, and they're supposed to be intelligent people that can make deductions, that can do the work of basically connecting the dots and doing the calculations and comparing all of this time period in history to 80 years ago, 90 years ago, and the build up to what happened, the end, the catastrophic end results of what had happened back then. And the same things happening today. It's not a coincidence. It's meant to be a wake up call. It's meant to have them put the pieces together and act and choose the right and choose to make the right decision. But they are blinded by their comfortable existence, by their habits, by whatever salary they're making, whatever material comforts they have there, whatever illusion of stability they have there, that keeps them there. And they're discouraged by returning to Israel because maybe they've lived here, they've understood the conditions, they don't like the Israeli mentality, they don't like the circumstances they have to live here, they have to live with here with Israelis, because it's difficult. It's hard to get along here. It's hard to make a living here. That's fully understood. But all those practical considerations are going to go flying out the window. And because they have not taken a leap of faith, because they have not submitted, because they have not surrendered to the belief that we are upon the messianic revelation to the fullest, and it's not about having to wait 100 years or 200 years. It's upon us now, because Hashem, God, made all of the signs very blatant. Even a majority of the Gentiles in the world know that something is happening, and it's tremendous. It's not a minor thing. It's a build up to some tremendous, dramatic event that we're all feeling and comprehending. And the fact that diaspora Jews are still trying to rebut this, deny this, and play their game of, we have more work to do here, just to have an excuse to stay there. And that's not going to fly. You're not fighting me. You're not trying to convince me. You're not debating me. You're not arguing with me, Chabubi, Jacob, Chabibti, my dear. Okay? You're arguing with the will of Hashem that you are ignoring, or you are claiming is not his will. Well, how do I know Well, you'll ask me, well, how do you know what God wills? What do you know what Hashem wants from us? Because I've been listening to my rabbi for the past, 17 years approximately, 16, 17 years, 15, 16 years. No matter how long, that's the repeating message. And I'm getting verification. And it's becoming abundantly clear that God does not want you there among the Gentiles anymore. And the message has been repeated. Your purpose for being there is no more. You are atem sham bechinam. You are there with no purpose, for free, meaning you're not getting any benefit from it. You're only getting a actually a minus. You're suffering. It's pointless suffering. You are supposed to have committed to returning to Israel as a leap of faith, no matter what you have to confront here. It's better that you confront what you have to confront here, go through the process of what you have to go through here, whatever kind of suffering, commit yourself in a leap of faith, and commit yourself to Israel. That's what God is demanding of you. If you don't do that now, if you don't bite the bullet now, if you don't take that bitter pill now, the price will be tenfold when you will be forced to return here, because you will lose everything and you will be pursued here violently. You will be pushed out of your comfort zone by the Gentiles. Either your friends will become indifferent towards you, neutral towards you. They'll be too busy trying to survive and protect their families and protect their own things, and they won't take an interest in you anymore. And then you'll have the other face of Gentiles that have over the years, thanks to Adam Green and Brother Nathaniel, built up so much animosity and resentment towards you that they blame you, and you are in their crosshairs. And because of your obliviousness, because of your willful ignorance, you seem to think that those people are harmless and they won't do anything to you, or that you have the authorities to protect you, or you have the police, or you have the security. All of that will be completely taken away, because when we have described the circumstances that face the world and the circumstances that face the United States and the West especially, when you're going to have such a disruption, such a dislocation, such a total shattering of your normalcy bias, similar to what happened to Europe's Jews when the Holocaust kicked off, and when the rounding up of the Jews began. On that level of shattering normalcy bias, it's not going to be a repeat of that, but it's going to be something on that level. Meaning, and I'll tell you exactly what it's going to be. And I'm going to drive this home, and I'm actually, I'm blue in the face, and my teeth are beginning to be sore, and my gums are sore, and my mouth is sore. My jaw is like it's like I'm working out my jaw, but it's like this. You know what's on the horizon. Well, you are going to be left without. You're going to be left penniless. You're going to be left with no refuge. You're going to be left with very little options on how to return to Israel. You're going to be left stranded, and you're going to be left having to sell your possessions for pennies on the dollar, if at all. You're going to be left with having to abandon a lot of your possessions, your homes, and your vehicles. And you're going to be also under the threat of deadly, crazy, rabid anti-Semites blaming you for the collapse, and blaming you for everything wrong with their lives, blaming you for being conspirators along with the government, blaming you for the Jews in the Biden administration, blaming you for Anthony Blinken, blaming you for what's her name, Nuland, what's her Victoria Nuland. Victoria Nuland, blaming you for Adam Schiff, blaming you for Jerry, what's his face? Jerry, the fat fuck, the penguin fuck, Jerry Nadler, or blaming you for Jeffrey Epstein, or blaming you for Harvey Weinstein, or blaming you for whoever. Woody
I
Allen.
haven't heard of I haven't heard of Nadler.
Jerry Nadler, he's one of the top senators or top congressmen in Congress.
Mm.
Look him up, Jerry Nadler. The guy shits his pants just like Biden. And then you have so many other Jews that, or the Undersecretary of Health, Rachel Levine. They'll be thinking of all of these people when the time comes and they're left desperate, and they'll say, those fucking Jews, they ruined our country. Our country is ruined. We have nothing left to lose. And they'll be on the march. You fucking Jews, you killed Jesus. And you're a bunch of pedophiles. You got Adam Schiff there. And you got all the rest of those fucking Epstein. And you're a bunch of sick pedos. And you're Satanists. And you're Jesus killer. You murdered Jesus. You're Jesus, what do you call them? Jesus killers. And, they'll be on the march. What is Christ killers? Oh, Christ. You're Christ killers. And you ruined our country. You fucking Jews. All right, that doesn't sound good to Jacob Faturechi, but those are the characters he's going to be up against. And he knows it. And he's going to have zero protection from the police, zero protection from the state. They'll be too busy trying to take care of the chaos that will be all around. And I'm not painting, an exaggerated picture. It's very, very, conceivable. It's I'm not like that character from the Princess Bride, the Sicilian, when he always says inconceivable. This is very conceivable. This is not inconceivable. It is extremely conceivable, and you could see it in front of your eyes. And the Jews are very stubborn because they're in their comfort zone, because they're very comfortable, despite the fact that everything around them is rotting, despite the fact that there are signs galore that things are changing against them, against their favor. And but just like the Jews of Europe and the Jews of Germany, they'll wait for the very last minute for confirmation, and they're waiting for confirmation from God because they're testing God. And my rabbi said, Al tenasuti ve'al tivdekuti. Do not test me, do not challenge me, do not investigate me. This is they know what he wills, they know what his will is, and they are repeating the mistakes of history. Why? By being smartasses. But Jacob is a very nice guy. He's very educated, he's very informed. But there's one problem. Really, he, like most of his fellow Jews in the diaspora, they are deluding themselves into believing they still serve a purpose amongst the Gentiles, when Hashem clearly does not want them there anymore. He does not want them intermarrying with the Gentiles. He does not want them interacting with the Gentiles anymore. That's it. This is end times, full ingathering of the Jews. This is divine justice. This is Hashem doing it for the benefit of the Jews themselves, making amends of all the wrongs, of all the injustices of history, the dispersal. God willed the dispersal. God willed the exile. God willed the Jews having to be his representatives, and that's what is written in the prophets. There will come a time of an end to it, a ketz, the end of the whole entire experience, the whole entire process of having to be in exile, of having to endure the suffering and injustice of the exile, the humiliation of the exile, and all the benefits of the exile as well. What the Jews managed to accomplish, how the Jews managed to persuade and influence, and all the contributions the Jews have made to the world. It's over. Once you know how it's over, when the full truth about Christianity gets revealed. The Jews lose their purpose for being amongst the Gentiles. The Gentiles grow wise. The information spreads like wildfire. And then the connection is severed. A lot of Christians are sympathetic and sentimental towards Jews because of Jesus, because of Christianity, because of the so-called connection that Christianity has to Judaism and to the Jewish people as the foundation of Christianity. But once they get wise enough, once they become intelligent and sophisticated enough, and they realize that it was one huge government ruse, one huge government mind screw, one huge scam, just as Rabbi Singer calls it a scam, but he doesn't want to go all the way. He only alludes to it from time to time because, again, it's politically too touchy. to shatter the minds of the Christians and have them fully realize that what you're fighting now, you're fighting these government, extra governmental institutions and organizations, non-governmental organizations, whatever, that try to be above the government, supersede the government. You want to call them all the banks, IMF, ECB, Fed, World Economic Forum, Davos, Bilderberg, Bohemian Grove, all these institutions, the Committee of 300. Do we have to go into all of it? The Club of Rome, the Vatican, all the whole cabal. They can put the map of all the interconnections and all the organizations and institutions, and all the multi-layering of how this whole fucking mess works. But at the same time, they have to include the source of it, which is that an invention of a false idol god that they've been fed for 2,000 years, allowing them to bask in the sun of this fraud, assuming to be superior when you're nothing but a bunch of poor schmucks that have been, cheated and lied to. Just the same as Americans have been cheated and lied to for decades, getting them to fight in such heinous, criminal wars for the sake of corporations, for the sake of the royals, for the sake of the whole infrastructure, the whole structure of the dollar, the economy, the petrodollar, the standard of living, all the fucking smoke they blew up all these men and women's asses to have them be patriotic cannon fodder or poor victims of imperial wars where they end up getting shot to pieces or blown to pieces or being traumatized for the rest of their lives. For what? Oh, for Operation Freedom or for Operation whatever. Operation CIA opium trade to Europe and to America. Operation Freedom, my ass. You think they wouldn't be most of the soldiers and female male troopers are disillusioned after Afghanistan.
Mm.
Their hearts aren't in going to Eastern Europe and fighting the Russians now. They have very low morale. They're extremely unmotivated under Biden and under the terms that they have to go to war with now. You think that they're stupid? They're not stupid people. They know that they've had smoke blown up their asses. They're what do you call them? They're career military, volunteers, career military personnel. They made a job of it. It's an occupation for them. That's how they earn their living for the most part. But their hearts aren't in it. Why the hell would they want to go to fight against the Russians now? For Biden or for this administration, for Obama pulling the strings behind the puppet Biden? Why? And after Afghanistan, after that debacle, and after the full truth of what had been done there, and how there was a lot of money laundering going on over there, just as there's a lot of money laundering going on in Ukraine, all being funneled back to the military-industrial complex and to the grubby hands of the corrupt politicians, and who knows where else it's going? Probably to the bankers, probably to the ECB. It's a backdoor to bail out European banks. It's a backdoor to bail out whatever bank, because they're in such fucking distress. It's a horse shit, what do you call that? Shit show. It's FUBAR, if you want to be, nostalgic about it. Fucked up beyond all recognition. If you see it for what it is, it's fucked up beyond all recognition. Why the hell would you want to go and start a nuclear war with Russia for fucking Biden and to be in those poor people's boots right now? Knowing they're totally unmotivated. The morale is at on the floor. It's not non-existent. You think they wanted? You saw how they treated Biden, the paratroopers over there in it wasn't in Hungary or in Poland, wherever on the border over there.
Oh, I missed that. What happened?
Oh God, they looked at him with such disgust. The senile doofus, whatever.
Oh, can we play that?
Yeah, I'll find it for you. Give me a second.
Oh. John dropped out. I better. Well, I guess he can come back in again. I hope he'll come back with the link. I don't know. Oh well, I'm not sure if John is if Sam is coming back.
Yeah, I found the link. I pressed the X on the window to shut off the StreamYards as well. Shut off I disconnected the connection, but when I tried to find the video, but there it is. You have it right there, and it was on the gateway pundit as well. And play that. You know, they're trying to be be like stiff upper lip and give him a smile, but they're all like looking at him with derision, like what this fucking guy, man. Not totally.
Well, it's important to trust, well, whoever it is that you're supposed to be dying for. Biden eats pizza with U.S. soldiers in Poland.
And you got to recall with Jill when he was the ex-president, not the vice president, the ex-vice president, he called them dumb animals to their faces. No. He said, clap, you dumb animals, clap, you dumb. I'll find you, clap, you dumb animals. First, play this.
Wow. Okay.
Thank you. And you're finished eating or just starting?
They're starting and they're doing a little bit closer.
Well, if you're starting to eat, I'm going to sit down and have something to eat. Is that all right?
Yeah. We got the pizza. There you go.
How embarrassing. That's terrible.
Yeah, I did.
Oh no. They basically ignored him.
Yeah, basically. I gotta show you this. I gotta show you this also. Clap, you dumb animals.
Okay.
With his wife there right next to it.
Okay.
1 second. Biden called report stupid son of a bitch. Trump wasted Russia, Ukraine. Biggest gaps and failures after 1 year in office. It'll take a while to research this. 1 second. I'll put it into Google. 1 second. Stupid bastards. Okay. 2016. Stupid bastards remark. Not dumb animals. Biden's 2016 stupid bastards remark to U.S. military intended as a joke. Right. Okay, let's find it. I just didn't find the keywords, the correct keywords in that I should use for YouTube. Clap for that, you stupid bastards. Here it is. Okay, with Jill. One second, I'm adding it to the private chat. And during the inauguration, they all turned their backs on him during the parade. Most of the military. And Jill was trying to hand out cookies, and nobody wanted to take her cookies. They all turned their backs on him.
Oh no!
During the whole parade down Pennsylvania Avenue, it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and play that. Clap, okay. You stupid bastards. This is the guy they should be following into nuclear war with Russia right now. You know, at the end of the discussion I had with Jacob, I told him basically that I have these conversations with you because, well, anyway, you are the perfect saboteur. You are exactly what he accuses you of being, and that's why I talked to you. You sabotage all of the bullshit, efforts of Jews to continue living in the exile.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor to introduce today Dr. Jill Biden, who will be joined on stage by her husband, Vice President Joe Biden. Please give them a warm welcome as a token of our appreciation for their tireless efforts to bring awareness to the sacrifices made by military families all around the world. Ma'am, the floor is yours.
Clap for that, you stupid bastards.
Hi, everybody. Wow. So nice to be here. Thank you, Brigadier General Orcutt, for that kind introduction. I'm Jill Biden, and I'm a proud military mom. As many of you may know, our son, Bo, served in the Delaware Army National Guard. His wife, Hallie, and their two children, Natalie and Hunter, are here with us today. And we're here for one simple reason, and that's to say thank you to every single service member and their family. On the daily basis, each of you show the world what words like service, strength, and sacrifice really mean. You and your fellow service members around the world inspire
Claire,
us.
you can fast forward a little bit.
We're honored to be in your presence, and we want all of you to know that everyone back home.
Everywhere I go, I see warriors like all of you before me and behind me here. Excuse my back, folks. I've been in and out of Balkans 25 times, in and out of Iraq 26 times, in and out of Afghanistan about 10 or 12 times. And I don't regret every time I'm with you all. And I mean this sincerely. Is the folks back home can't see it. Can't see it in place. Don't get to fly in the mission with them. Don't understand. They appreciate, they don't fully understand the incredible sacrifices you make for our country. And I want you to know, notwithstanding what you may hear about me, I have incredibly good judgment. One, I married Jill. And two, I appointed Johnson to the academy. I just want you to know that. Clap for that, you stupid bastard.
Clap for that, you stupid bastard. Clap for that, you stupid bastard. Stop it. That's enough.
Must be slow here, man. Oh.
Yeah, that should be enough to there.
Yeah.
Claire, that was the whole point.
Yeah.
those are his gaffes,
Mhm.
he meant it as a joke. Yeah. But this is the person who was behind all of those illegal wars of conquest and imperial interests, economic interests. We know all the reasons why. Aside from all the smoke that was blown up people's asses, then we know it was for the petrodollar. It was for the economic, credit card, the easy money, the fiat, arrangement that with the Saudis and the rest of the OPEC cartel. And again, you want to take it back, and you want to have people hear what really is the story behind 9/11 and that whole false flag and who was behind it. And I'd say it's a number of different intelligence agencies, including the Mossad. Yes, I'm 100% capable of admitting that the Mossad had a hand in
Mhm.
also conducting that false flag. But aside from the Mossad, you had MI6, you had the CIA, you had the Austrians, you even had the Pakistanis, the Pakis, and you had the Saudis, of course. And most of the people that were on the list of passengers that were on those planes were Saudi nationals. And those planes weren't being flown by humans. You know, they were being remotely controlled. There was no way in hell. All
Mhm.
Air Force pilots and airline pilots said that those kind of maneuvers were impossible for normal pilots to conduct,
Mhm.
and it was remotely controlled and flown into those buildings. Those weren't fanatical terrorists, Muslim terrorists. Really, I think the story is that all of them were put to sleep, and then those planes were remotely controlled. All of them were gassed, or the oxygen was taken out of the cabins, and they all were asphyxiated and were not even awake for when those planes crashed into the buildings. And it was a big operation, and everybody knows
Mhm.
that it's the deep state, and it was a bunch of different intelligence agencies, and all of them had their interests, mostly financial interests. Israel's interests were also security-based interests to get
Mhm.
America involved in fighting the war in Iraq and also in Afghanistan. Yes, so that's a full admission right there. And the British had their interests in preserving the petrodollar and the banking system because it serves them above everyone else. The Rothschild banking cartel is based out of London and the city of London, especially, and also out of Switzerland, out of the Bank of International Settlements over there in Zurich
Mhm.
or Bern or wherever it is, and also the corporate headquarters of this cabal in Washington D.C. You heard Mel K talk about them, talk about the three centers of the power centers of the Western world.
Mhm.
The banking center, the military, sort of head of the Hydra in Washington D.C. and the finances in London and the central bank of central banks in Switzerland. All right, so it's no longer a secret. 9/11 was done deliberately by intelligence agencies, all with their own interests that were overlapping, that actually were in sort of like what's the word, the same. They were they were hand in hand committing this atrocity, this false flag, because they had not opposing, but what do you call that in a good way of putting it, they had coinciding interests, and the Saudis had their interests because Saddam Hussein threatened the petrodollar. They were still fully committed and in line with the petrodollar agreement at that time. And Saddam had threatened the petrodollar. He'd started selling his oil in euros, and he threw the whole machine off kilter, and he needed to be disposed of. And so the Saudis had an interest in lending a hand to 9/11 as well. And because it is so convoluted, and because it is so multi-handed, It's not going to be fully exposed because once you expose everyone, then everyone comes out looking like shit. It's not just that, oh, the Jews and the Israelis had a hand in it. It's the Arabs had a hand in it. It's the Americans that had a hand in it. It's the British had a hand in it. It's the whatever, the Germans, the Austrians had a hand in it. The Pakis had a hand in it. And you know, that's why they don't tell the full truth. They don't reveal the full truth. But what gets the people that have it in for Israel is that Israel did 9/11, and we have proof of it. It was Israel. But they immediately get by honest people like myself, they'll get countered, and they'll get challenged by the fact that Dick Cheney told the military to stand down. He told NORAD to stand down. He had his feet up on his desk in his office in the White House while it was all going on, and they took pictures of him doing this. And the military was told to stand down, and even investigators, FBI investigators, revealed this. That's so it's sorry, baby. It's not Israel that told Dick Cheney and George Washington. What is it? Not George Washington. George Bush Jr. I called him George Washington. George Bush Jr. To sit there in that kindergarten class and look like a total dunce while it was all going on. It's obvious. It's shameful, yeah, but it's dirty, yeah. It's the way realpolitik actually works, yeah. And fucking Saddam Hussein was an agent of MI6 and the CIA. They created that guy. They put him into power, and then when he flipped on them, he turned on them. He went rogue. They had to go and kill him. They had to get rid of him.
How did they put him there?
It was during there was a Ba'ath Party revolt, which he was a member of. The Ba'ath Party was in line with the Nazis during the war. And believe it or not, I think it was relatives or Iraqi Jewish family that actually saved Saddam's mother before while she was pregnant with Saddam, and she and he were abandoned by their father. And she was going into labor, and she was going to miscarry, or she was not going to be able to have Saddam. It was actually a Jewish family that were kind to her, saved her, and helped her deliver Saddam Hussein in Baghdad. But the story behind Saddam Hussein and his being trained by the CIA, he was trained to be an assassin, a Ba'ath Party assassin to cause a revolution in Iraq. And you can research this. It's not such a big secret. It's not hidden. It's very exposed. Here, Saddam Hussein CIA roots. 1 second. Saddam CIA roots. Here, CIA agent. Saddam CIA agent. Yeah. Let's see how long this little piece is. Saddam Hussein CIA agent exposed. Oh, it's by that same guy who wrote the Economic Hitman. Here, 1 second. Let's give you that link.
So we decided that's
here. It's the same guy that wrote the Economic Hitman. Here, let's play this 2-minute video. It's also translated into Arabic. Play that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And if you ask me about Jacob's, position on what God wills, God willed that Saddam be born, and God willed that a Jewish family should save Saddam's mother and help her bring Saddam into the world, despite the very complicated life that Saddam led and the criminal, violent life that he led.
Now, probably a lot of you know that Saddam has been our boy for a very, very long time. You may remember Abdul Karim Qasim, who was president of Iraq in the early 60s. Qasim came up with a unique concept. He said, Iraqi oil ought to go to benefit the Iraqi people. How novel is that? But we didn't like that very much. He began to tax the oil companies, particularly the British and some American companies, and threatened to nationalize our oil companies. And so we decided that Qasim had to go. The CIA sent in an assassination team. It was headed by a man who was still going through high school, an Iraqi citizen who was still going through high school. They riddled Qasim's car with bullets on the streets of Baghdad and missed him. The head of this assassination team was wounded and fled to Syria. His name was Saddam Hussein. He was a CIA agent in those days, an assassin for us. He failed. He was our boy. He was our man. And so and we sold him and gave him a lot of tanks. We built him, Bechtel built him big chemical, I don't know, my father-in-law was chief architect at Bechtel, built Saddam big chemical plants that were used, and we knew that they were used to make mustard gas and other chemical weapons that were being employed against the Kurds and later the Iranians. We knew this, but we sold him these things. You have to remember that Middle Eastern oil is the oil that's used by a great deal of Europe, China, and Japan. If we control Middle Eastern oil, we control our biggest potential competitors, Japan, China, Europe. So it's very important that we do.
John Perkins, what is it? The book you wrote, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And so he had an attack of conscience, and he spilled the beans about every operation the CIA was involved in to overthrow governments that posed a threat to America's hegemony, especially all the countries in Latin America. Yes. And so the thing is about all the claims that America fights Israel's wars. It's written in our oral Torah, in the Gemara and in the Talmud, that in the end times that Edom would come to Israel, to the Jews, and tell them, look, we did all of this for you. And in response, God would give them a response and an answer by exposing them and saying, no, you didn't. You did it all for yourselves. You did it all for your money. You did it all for your economic benefit. You did it all for your hegemony. You did it all for the scam, the scheme that you have running to dominate the world financially, to dominate the world's resources. You did nothing of the sort for the benefit of the Jews. That's all a bunch of horse shit, again, to kind of suck up to the evangelical Christians or the pro-Israel Christians, the Zionist Christians. Oh, we sent our boys off to die for Israel, for the Jews. It was a worthy cause. We did it for the God's people. We did it for Jerusalem. We did it for Jesus. We went there for Jesus. No, we didn't go there for the petrodollar. No, we didn't go there for the scam of controlling the world's resources and having that big, huge, chess piece in the Middle East, in the grand, what do you call it, the grand chessboard, the big game, whatever. No, we did it for Jesus. Jesus, right. All right, so that's where the disillusion comes as well. And the U.S. military should be very demoralized and disillusioned. You should overthrow your fucking, fraudulent, fake government instead of taking orders and going to war and starting a nuclear war for this illegitimate government, for this usurper, resident in chief, for the fucking clown show that do you have? Well, I mean, what do you have to lose? They're going to throw you into the meat grinder and throw you against the Russians that will have no mercy on you. They'll use all their best weapons against you. They'll totally cut you to pieces if the war starts. They're not going to be merciful towards the NATO or the whatever, the Americans or whatever. And that's just they're just going to be cannon fodder. And you're doing it for who? For the corrupt elite, for Biden, for Obama, for Bush, for Clinton, for all these fucktards. Are you going to take orders from those people? I mean, if anything, there should be a very. I mean, I'm calling for a coup. They should get rid of they should get rid of their illegitimate government. But their illegitimate government is turned tyrannical. They're tyrannical at this point, and they'll go after everybody and anybody that calls them out for being illegitimate. You saw what they did to all the January 6th protesters. They took away all their freedoms. They're still stuck in prison. They're still political prisoners. They have no representation. They have nothing. They can no recourse, and they're trapped as political prisoners. And a lot of them are decorated veterans. And that's how the U.S.
Oh,
government.
were they?
Yeah, most of the people in jail now are decorated veterans.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, for sure. And so yeah, I mean, it's that it's a story of like a tragic story of tyranny, playing itself out in the United States now. Now there have been plenty of other people that have called for an overthrow. They could accuse Trump of calling for an insurrection and an overthrow or a coup. But in this case, with the popularity polls or the approval ratings being in the 20s for Biden, and Harris is not even mentioned. She's a non-person. She's like not even, nobody remembers her. Nobody even thinks about her.
Sorry, who is it?
The vice president. What's her name? Harris. Did
Oh,
you
right.
even think? Nobody thinks of her. She's totally forgettable. So America is a mockery. It looks like a joke, but they still have all this nuclear power, all these nuclear weapons, and all these weapons, and all the military troops deployed around the world. It's humiliating. It's if I'd be in the in the U.S. military now under Biden, I'd feel so utterly demoralized and humiliated. Having this doofus, this puppet, this stand-in, this resident, this goofball committing me to confrontation with a nuclear power that has, a legacy of being merciless when confronting an opponent. They don't pull any punches. I mean, they were measured in Ukraine, and they did that because they see the Ukrainians as their fellow Slavs and the, siblings, same birds of a feather, that they won't want to be overly harsh and rough with them. But the ones that executed their prisoners, the Nazis, they got revenge. They got swift revenge on those motherfuckers for committing war crimes and filming it and terrorizing the parents and causing them such agony and having that be published on the internet and advertised on the internet. They found those motherfuckers. They got rid of them real quick, and they made them pay. They tortured them back. They tortured them real good. So the Russians don't pull any punches. You start a war with them, they're not like, Iraq or Afghanistan. They're gonna fuck up your day. They're not gonna be nice to you. They're not gonna pull any punches, and they're gonna use their best weapons against you. And the Americans are already demoralized. Europeans are demoralized. They see who's really fucking them up. They see who's really sabotaging them. They see who's really pulling the rug from underneath them. They know it's their own. They know it's the IMF. They know it's the World Economic Forum. They know it's the elites. They know it's the royals. They know it's the whatever, the ECB. They know it's the banker elites, the corporations. But the industrial giants in Germany don't want to sabotage their own industry. They're opposed to it, but they're also left helpless because the government wackos, whack jobs are implementing suicide, sabotage. They're running an operation for the Great Reset, causing as much damage as possible in order to bend people's will, break their will, have them be desperate, and asking for a solution. And so they're risking nuclear war. They're going this far, and the poor suckers in the U.S. military now. And this is coming from not me. This is coming from a Marine Corps officer, now a attorney for former President Trump, saying these words coming out of her mouth, that the U.S. military personnel are extremely demoralized because they are being force-fed political correctness, LGBTQ plus P plus B plus S, mind control, and they have to submit. They can't speak out, and they're being also weakened with having to take forced shots. I'm not going to get into that. Just by saying that, I don't know. I hope that doesn't get you in trouble. And their will is taken from them, and they're supposed to die for what? For what? For the Great Reset, for the economic transition of the elites from their old system to their new system. I would feel like the ultimate sucker. I would feel like such a dupe. I feel badly for those guys and for those women, men and women, for those guys and gals. You saw them getting on the planes and flying over to Bulgaria or to Poland or to wherever on the borders of Ukraine, and they looked dejected. They looked like they were miserable. They looked like none of them were smiling. None of them were happy. They looked like like they had to schlep themselves. They weren't motivated at all, and I wouldn't be either. Not under this president. Not under this administration, and not under who's really pulling the strings that are now out in the open, and the information is out there. It's their own people. It's former military and serving, current active duty and reservists that are actually spreading the word and actually having all this information get passed along. The military, it's not that they're gossipers. There's more cohesion between them. They're forced to be together. They're forced to talk amongst one another. They're forced to really sound off on what they think is really going on amongst themselves. So this information spreads and it demoralizes them. Why would you want to fight a fucking fake war for Biden after the Afghanistan debacle? And after all of his gaffes, and after realizing that the election was stolen, all these things put together, it would, I feel really badly for them, for the U.S. military, and for all the British as well. The British soldiers aren't stupid. They're not glory hounds. Not at this point. They're not glory hounds. Not for this president, and not for Johnson, and not for Biden. I mean, they'd have to be out of their minds. And I'm sure they're not. But they're not happy with what they're faced with right now. And they're not buying the propaganda. They're not that stupid. They're not stupid. That's about it, Claire. My neck is cramped.
Okay.
Ow. All right. So I wish you a pleasant good night.
And the same to you. Sleep well.
Thank you.
Talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.